Hello, and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 138, Brave Browser, Thanks for the Memory, recorded on March 19th, 2021. From Zenatta Consulting, I'm Brett Martin.
I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the show.
Sir, we'll start off with some announcements this morning. We have got a couple webinars coming up in April. So we've got Zoho CRM Workflows, Beginner and Advanced Workflows for your business needs. That should be pretty good. Looking forward to that. That's going to be April 1st at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And then Zoho People Overview and Best Practices. We're kind of running through all of the apps in our Overview and Best Practices series. And that will be April 20th, which is a Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time as well. And of course, over at crmzen.com, if you were to go ahead and click on the events calendar, you will see everything that is coming up. Next week, I'm actually sitting in on a webinar with Catalyst Connect on how to achieve successful Zoho implementations through business process analysis. I will have no idea what I'm talking about, but it should be great. We'll go through that. That'll be fun. But we're seeing more and more webinars come in here, so pretty good stuff. I really suggest, if you can, check that out. All right, let's jump into the news. So PageSense has updated its web analytics. So this is internal analytics. This is not pulling anything into analytics, but basically they've made some enhancements to the data you get out of PageSense. And if you're unfamiliar with PageSense, this is an application. It's a little bit of tracking code that you put on your website, and it will track every click someone's made, how far they've gone to fill in a form, how far down they scroll on your page, how much time they spend. Just has all sorts of data, that very useful data that it collects on your website. Similar, I guess, to Google Analytics, but kind of at a much more detailed. It gives you a lot of detail on what's actually going on your website.
And some of the key kind of new KPIs that they're presenting in this is things like, total versus new visitors, session length, page views, pages per session, average session duration, right? So it's kind of a lot of these roll-up KPIs that just summarize how people are interacting with your web page.
Yep. And one of the other things you can do with PageSense is you can A/B test your website live, which is kind of interesting. So if you put up a new page, you're kind of deciding what to, maybe you've got two layouts for a certain page, or you're trying to get somebody to act on, click on a link on a certain page. You basically can test that live and see what gets the most clicks, what gets the most results, and then go ahead and push that up. There's a lot of great stuff to do with this application. It's one of those ones that, we don't get a lot of people that actually come to us and say, hey, put PageSense on. Sometimes we'll bring it up to them as we're kind of, going through their overall process, but you don't get a lot of requests for it, but it's a very good app. And then Zoho Creator has got some updates coming in March. Have you had a chance to look at these?
Yes, it's kind of just a handful of updates. I know down the line here, we'll probably be getting more and more throughout 2021. Kind of the top level of this, you're able to import data just a little bit easier into a live application, right? Some improved export settings, file previews now if you have things loaded in that way. A couple new bulk APIs as well. One of the nice things about that, and I will say for the developers out there, you'll know Zoho kind of has a habit of limiting the amount of records you can pull in one API call to 200. It's going to be the same in CRM. It's the same over there in Zoho Creator. They're working on increasing that update for Creator. I will say I would love if they do that for the rest of the apps too. Hopefully that's kind of step one is Creator, and step two will be some of these other applications. Now there are workarounds for that, of course. You can basically, doing some air quotes here for our audio listeners, paginate your API call and basically, call records 1 to 200 and then 201 to 400 and so on and so forth. If you kind of build a little function for that. But it'd be nice if they can expand that past 200, maybe bump it up to a couple thousand. Of course, that's going to be a little more of a server load for them, but it would be nice for us.
Yeah, and you can now also pull your data directly into Microsoft's Power BI. So if that's your analytics tool, that's helpful. All right, and moving on with our news, Zoho Marketplace, we've got the February Roundup. This is basically everything that happened in February, can't pronounce the month today, but that's okay. I don't know. I kind of skimmed through this earlier. One of the things about this Roundup that they put out is that basically if an app is updated, it kind of works its way into here. So it's really one of these things you kind of got to skim through to see if there's anything truly new in here.
One thing that did stand out to me is that RingCentral SMS integration for Zoho Desk. That we get a lot of requests for that in CRM. RingCentral being kind of one of the leading voice over IP providers for the CRM and really for most Zoho applications. Looks like this came out maybe early February here for an SMS integration to Zoho Desk. Looks like it's built by OApps. We've actually used some of their products before.
They're pretty good.
They're generally pretty good. Please, if you're listening, bring that to CRM for us too. We'd love that. It's kind of one little gap is, RingCentral, the voice plugs in great to the CRM, but there isn't really a current functionality for SMS.
Well, Matt Kuchek, is that his name? I'm sorry he actually has a really, really great plugin that has disappeared from the store, but you can get it separately. And I was talking to someone the other day. He's made a lot of improvements on it. I need to reach out to him and see what that looks like, because someone was telling me that that's a great implementation for this. But I agree, it's something that's missing and totally missing in Desk everywhere. But we'll see. All right, and then moving on, we have Zoho Desk. Dude, this is a big one. Skill-based ticket assignment. So rather than having teams, you're defining the skills in those teams and the skills based on the person and assigning the ticket based upon that. That's pretty slick. The example they're using here is, someone has the product knowledge and they speak German. So a ticket comes in German and gets assigned to the right person.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one. So they have a couple others as well that they're using as a demo. You basically set up a group of skills and then assign them to people. They also have one called software. It looks like what they're trying to do is read and detect and kind of automate this for you rather than having you look for a particular word, right? Because right now you could come in and, you could set up a workflow to say that if a ticket has a certain word in the content or the subject line, then it gets assigned. Looks kind of like this is trying to read the ticket itself and assign some skills that you can then change if it gets it wrong, but trying to basically automate that process for you.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that this is more AI rather than just big data, kind of crunching the numbers, looking at it using some algorithms, but curious. Curious to see how this comes. Do you think you're just training it, period?
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things you have to train for a little while.
Yeah. Well, either way, that will be nice if that actually gets fully up and functional down the road.
Because that is one thing, when you're running those auto assignments now, you're looking for specific words, right? So I could say, if the ticket content contains software or app or tech or, lag, right? Maybe I assign that to the software team. But what if the person says technology or they slightly misspell it, right? Or any of those things that make it not match like a static criteria, right? So if they can actually put a little bit of machine learning to, kind of learn with you and figure out the skills based on the types of tickets you get, it could be pretty slick.
Yep. And moving on, Zoho Recruit is now partnered with BambooHR, which is interesting because I would kind of put these two as, I guess I'd put people in BambooHR in competition with each other. So they're saying this is a partnership, though, which I think is really, really interesting. They've got full integration between Recruit and BambooHR. So normally I think most people would use Zoho People and Recruit, but BambooHR is the leader in this entire space. And so I think it's kind of an interesting pairing. Could be good.
Yeah. And they're kind of rebuilding one of the core values of Recruit and People, where, Recruit being your applicant tracking system, right? You can kind of track someone through that whole process. And once you hire them, you can actually just roll them over into a user of Zoho People, right? So all their info, all their documents, all this, data that you've already collected just routes to People.
Yeah.
And basically what they've done here is recreate that, but just routing your data over to BambooHR. It's pretty nice. I mean, Zoho People, it's a solid application, but you have to have a license for every single person that's going to be that you're going to manage in there. And so if you're on Zoho One and maybe you don't want to have every single user have to get one of those licenses just to use Zoho People, you could just, route them right over to BambooHR and still access a lot of the value.
And I think BambooHR is less dense, I should say, from a kind of an HR management software. So they're both very, very good. But this was
actually built by Tiara in coordination with Zoho. So Tiara Consulting, another group there that does some great plugin work.
Yeah, Tiara is interesting. They basically were hired by Zoho years ago when Zoho first launched Zoho Books. They were the company that basically did, for a while, Zoho was saying, if you're on QuickBooks, we'll migrate you to Zoho Books for free. And the company that did that was Tiara Consulting. Since then, they still do that. As a matter of fact, anytime we have somebody who really has a massive migration from QuickBooks to Zoho Books, we send them over to Tiara. Venkatesh Babu is the CEO over there, great guy. And they're basically in Pleasanton, California. Anyway, they've got since then, I know we talked to them at the developers conference in October, was that 19?
Yep.
Just before, October 2019. And they were, their whole focus was, we're going to start building out some of these extensions, and this is where we're going to go. And I know they've been doing this for a while. So this is actually a big one, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. And then moving along, Zoho Projects adds EVM, so Earned Value Management, allowing project managers to measure the progress of a project in terms of cost and its schedule. I have never worked with this before, but it looks, as I was reading through it, it looks really, really interesting as a way of kind of looking at your overall projects based upon, the metrics as the cost variance and, how you are in performance. And I don't know. I'd be curious to see how this would play in the real world.
Yeah, and so basically what you would be doing here is charting out what you would expect to have as a cost value over time, right? And then what you would expect to have delivered over time. And this gives you a way to kind of compare your planned value generated versus your planned cost, and then look at what your actual value generated and your actual cost is compared to that plan. They've kind of put together a couple reports here that are pre-baked to use that methodology. Oftentimes what they do here is you kind of set up a project using a particular framework, right? You can decide how you want to measure time, how you want to measure billings. And so probably just going to be a new option that you can use to spin up a project using this methodology.
Yeah, I mean, Zoho Projects, if you're into it, I guess this would be something, this is a whole nother layer of data to capture inside projects, but it's putting them on par, I guess, with some of the larger, bigger projects. I think you really only want to do that for some major projects, though. I can't imagine just kind of one-offs that there would be a whole lot of value in that. All right. And let's continue with the news. We have got more improvements to Zoho Backstage. This is actually more of an in case you missed it, and it's a summary of various other things. I did read through this. This actually dropped this morning. We're recording this on March 19th, and I was reading this morning while laying in bed, drinking my coffee. When they talked about this Zoom webinar integration, what they are actually doing here is really interesting, and that you can manage the entire registration and everything through Backstage, and then they are going to go ahead and sync that with Zoom. So you then get the ability then to look at all of your metrics inside of Backstage, the presenters. So it's interesting. This might be worth us playing around with on some webinars to see what the advantages are, what kind of different metrics you get, because it looks like you're moving things to different, outside. So it's kind of this hybrid you end up with at the end of the day. So I'd be curious to see what that looks like. I don't know, but I think we did cover all of this in the past. I don't know if anything else jumped out at you here from Backstage.
Yeah, I think we touched on most of these.
Anyway, all right. And then Zoho CRM, this is wild, adds multiple location URL and date picker to Webforms. I forget about Webforms. So for those of you that don't know, if you are a CRM user, you actually have the ability to create Webforms inside the CRM. You do not need Zoho Forms for this. There's an entire form builder inside of the CRM. We rarely use it because most of our clients, I think these days, have Zoho One, or they want the power of Zoho Forms because there's just so much more you can do with Zoho Forms. But for those of you who are on CRM alone, you can now host web forms at multiple locations, and they've got a date picker, which is something that was probably necessary for quite a while inside the forms. But we just never see this used much anymore.
And so the interesting thing with the new update to host a web form in multiple locations is, you already could do that. It'll ask for a form location URL when you're creating the web form. And you could always just put an asterisk in there, which basically would allow you to embed it on any page. Kind of nice that they're adding the ability to predefine more than one URL if you do want to control and say this web form should not be able to exist anywhere but these 2 or 3 spaces. So kind of a nice little update there, but one that's more for controlling things because you already had the functionality to embed this in multiple places.
Is it allowed? But one of the things it doesn't appear to be doing then is allowing for you to have multiple submit URLs, right? Redirects.
Yeah, they're all going to go to the same landing page.
It seems I would want to have multiple redirects in this. Anyway, honestly, I don't think anybody very much uses this anymore. You should be using Zoho Forms. It's much more powerful at the end of the day. I mean, this is very simplistic. You'll have to give it to your webmaster, though, to basically put it into some sort of usable form. It comes out pretty much as some pure HTML. But good stuff. Glad to see that someone's still working on that somewhere in Zoho land. All right. And mobile news, we've got a couple stories here. So iOS 14, you've now got menus and date pickers and wind down shortcuts are now available. So basically more support for basically base compatibility with iOS 14 right now. And they've just brought that into the into Zoho CRM application, which, by the way, I live in on my phone and my iPad, and I love this application. It is so nice. It just gets better all the time. I don't know if you use it on your phone or not, but it's nice. So anyway, that's about that. And then you can now stay on top of your task with task notifications in Zoho Desk for Android. So if you've got Zoho Desk and you've got tasks, guess what? You've got notifications now. So,
and it looks like basically when you're setting up these notifications, you could always use an email or an SMS, but now you've got the option to have a little pop-up. So if you do like those kind of push notification style reminders, you can set those up for your tasks in Zoho Desk.
All right. And Tyler, that brings us to the implementation of the week. This is a pretty cool one.
Yeah, so this is one that it's kind of a general implementation of the week because we've done this in a couple different shapes and forms for people over the past few weeks. But basically, it's just leveraging custom functions to send Zoho Sign documents via the CRM. And if you're a CRM user or Zoho One user, the first thing you're probably going to think is, well, there's already a pre-built integration to do that. And there very much is. You can just plug Zoho Sign right into the CRM. It allows you to send documents from a contact, from a deal, from a lead, with a little button. But what we often find is that integration just takes a lot of clicks. And Zoho has done good work to make it load fast, and they have a quick send option and things like that. So it's getting faster and faster to use the pre-built integration. But if you're running really high volume, or if there are certain conditions in your system that every time this box gets checked, I want to send a signed document, then it might be a good idea to consider, running a custom function to do that. And so basically what we do is, based on a certain trigger in the record, we can gather up information using a custom function. One advantage here is we can also pull data from, like a related list or from a parent record, right? Whereas the default integration is just going to pull from the one record you're triggering, the document from. And then we're able to basically organize that data into your template, pre-fill some fields based on data that we have in the CRM and automatically send it out for signature. The last little thing here is that, you've got one of the big advantages with the default Zoho Sign integration is that everything lives in that little, Zoho Sign documents related list. Right. And so as you click through, you get to see when something's been sent and once it's been signed. But we've found you can actually just create a custom module and replicate that process in the function. Right. So, one of the big drawbacks to this has always been that if you do automatically send these out, then you don't get that, link to the Zoho Sign document automatically in your record. So if you want to track your contract for the deal or for your lead, But we've kind of worked out a little methodology that we've been able to use for a couple clients where we're actually able to even track when someone has viewed the document, we update the little record. Once they sign it, we update it. And once it's kind of finalized and completed, we update our little custom module. So it's kind of just a way that, if you're running really high volume through Zoho Sign and you want to save some man hours on kind of working through this process, that might be something worth considering. Now, I do want to highlight, this does consume Zoho Sign API credits. So if you aren't familiar with those, they're on the more expensive side as far as API credits go. They're 50 cents per credit. It's actually cheaper than DocuSign or Adobe Sign when you're running automations through there. But it is just important to know that there is kind of a cost to this. Now, the amount of time you're saving probably makes it worth it to consider it, because 50 cents per document, if you're saving a couple minutes, might be a good thing to look at. But just kind of want to put this out there because it's something we've bumped into a couple times over the past few weeks, and we found that there's a lot of time to be saved by working these into automated workflows.
We can only kind of do this with templates right now, right? With signed templates, not kind of linking over into a mail merge kind of thing with a Zoho document.
Yeah, we're actually going to take a crack at that next week. Okay. So maybe expect a new implementation in a couple of weeks on that. To basically run something through mail merge first, then go over to Zoho Sign, because like Brett mentioned, these are running with signed templates, meaning that you're using like PDF documents with pre-spaced fillable fields, versus in a mail merge, you're actually filling things in like a text sensitive format. So it'll resize lines and everything. So
there's a couple steps before you get to Zoho Sign, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the issue, I think, in trying to find that linkage. I mean, be curious to see what we can do. You think about tying it back through the email or what?
Yeah, well, so actually what we've been using is every Zoho Sign document gets a request ID. It's kind of like a lead ID or a deal ID. So we just write that back, because when in our function, every time you create a record, you can then get information about whatever you just created. So we actually get that request ID and bring it back to the deal or bring it back to our custom module, so that once things are signed, we can, route the Zoho Sign to go and find the right document based on that request ID.
Nice. All right, let's move on to the read of the week. This is nice. So Sridhar Vembu wrote he's the CEO of Zoho, wrote a very nice blog on the last 25 years of Zoho. And while I have sat down and talked to him for hours and hours on end, and I thought I'd had every little detail about the history of Zoho, oh man, there's a lot I didn't know. And so if you want to know about the whole entire story of Zoho, how they got started, how they bootstrapped it, how they did a big pivot at one point in time and completely changed everything that they were doing, then this is worth the read. And so it talks, he and Tony starting it up, his family, the group that was, the group going in India, the group going over here in the United States, all of the various aspects of it is pretty cool. And then at the very end of this read, you've got a super nice video that's about almost 20 minutes long, that is all the founders kind of telling their story. It starts with Raju, who's been around for 20 plus years, and kind of everybody kind of going through the Zoho story. So it's, if you're interested in Zoho, I loved it. I enjoyed reading the article and I enjoyed the video.
Yeah, and it's just fascinating, that when you look through the history of a business, how many changes happen and how many pivots there has to be to, stay relevant and get to the size and scale that Zoho's reached over these years. So, it's a pretty cool little story of growth with, some of those guys that have been around for 20 plus years building it.
Yeah. And not a single bit of outside funding. The entire thing has been bootstrapped the entire way, which, they talk about it all the time, but it's still quite, in this day and age, it's just amazing to build a multi-billion-dollar company out of nothing. So,
and we can say, with high confidence, if they had taken any venture capital money, Zoho One would not be so cheap.
No,
it'd be a lot more for what you're getting there. So it's the fact that they bootstrapped actually hugely affects their product and the way they run their company, because they don't have to base every single decision on maximizing profit, because they don't. We know that from talking to them and from their strategy, that it's not all about maximizing your quarterly profit. They're always about providing value and, growing in the long term. So
Yeah.
it really does affect the core company culture.
Yes, it would be a different world if Sridhar hadn't have said no to Mark Benioff 5-6 years ago when he was trying to buy them. So when that's Salesforce.com, for those of you who don't know, we definitely, it would be less competitive, and you're right, things would be completely different.
And now we see Salesforce kind of copying the Zoho model, buying platforms like Slack and Tableau, right, to kind of recreate what Zoho's already been building for a long time.
Yep. All righty. And so kind of leading up, we've got our, what are we doing this? Is Zoho People or Recruit we're doing this month on our webinar? I cannot remember. People. So, well, we've got a blog on resume, so it's kind of all the same thing anyway, but so we've got a nice blog on what to look for in a resume, and just breaks down everything you should be looking for to make sure that the candidate's story is correct and that they're kind of ticking all the boxes. So a nice read if you are curious as to what you should look for in a resume. Also over on Zenatta.com, we've got creating customized email templates in Zoho CRM. This actually is a rewrite of an article that came out quite a while ago, but was outdated. So we wanted to kind of update this for you. So kind of a nice little rewrite on how to get your customized email templates set up. We've got videos on this as well, but we get asked this all the time. And, one of the most important aspects of this, if you're watching us on YouTube, is most people go to set up a template and they click on this blank right here, thinking they're going to be blank, and they just don't notice this insert HTML plain text button up here in the corner. And that's really what you want to check. That'll actually make your email go out looking like an email. It won't have borders on the sides. It won't have, it won't look templatey, I guess, for lack of a better word. So anyway, very simple tutorial here, but hopefully worth your time. And then we found yet another resource guide. This is for Zoho Marketing Hub, and this is lead scoring in Zoho Marketing Hub. And so I don't know what's going to happen here, Tyler. Marketing Hub is continuing down a development path. Campaigns is continuing down a development path. I wish they would merge into one sooner rather than later. I'm actually hearing that there's maybe a third product that's going to just subsume all of them into one thing. So we will see sooner or later. But if you're using Marketing Hub, here's lead scoring.
Yeah, and this lead scoring guide, because so much of the functionality is shared, right, between Campaigns and Marketing Hub, anything that you read in here about email scoring is going to be almost exactly the same in Campaigns. And I will say it's a powerful tool. We've done a lot with scoring in workflows, which are like the Campaigns and Marketing Hub version of a journey or email sequence. Because what we found is, let's say if you go to a trade show and you get 10,000 leads, well, you don't want to just delegate those out to your sales reps and have them start calling, right? And so what you can do with lead scoring is basically, load those people into Campaigns or into Marketing Hub, run them through a journey, and then based on the opens and the clicks, you roll up at the end of that journey what their score is. And if they've reached a high enough score, then we activate them to sales. So it's a really, quick to deploy way to, kind of get an MQL value for different leads so that you can hand off just the highest value people to your sales team. So it's definitely worth setting up. If you're working with high volumes of leads, you probably should consider some type of scoring model.
Yeah. And, we've been doing some more this week, kind of dived a little bit deeper and did another relook at Marketing Hub. And it seems like some of their buggy issues may be debugged now. So, I'm kind of thinking maybe there's some parity between the two, and maybe Marketing Hub needs to move out of our no into our maybes. It seems like most of those little bugs are worked out right now. I still don't get why they both need to be there, but that's just that. That's just me rambling on. All righty. And that brings us to our application of the week. All right. Maybe everybody knows about this. Maybe it just took me. I've heard about this for the longest time. I kept having some serious issues with Chrome where it was just killing my memory. I don't know what was running. Not sure what was going on there, but I ended up switching this week to the Brave web browser. Now, the coolest thing about this is, and if you're watching on YouTube, this basically is there when you go to a screen right now. They will run an ad down here. This is what they're basically asking you to do. Look at this ad, occasionally click on it. For that, they're going to block all ads. They're going to give you completely private browsing. But the coolest thing is, this is based on Chromium. So when you go to set it up, you just click a button and everything is imported in less than 10 seconds. All of your plugins from Chrome, all of your extensions, all of your bookmarks, everything just instantly comes in and you're basically in Chrome, but with everything no ads whatsoever, just completely private. And you also, when you go into private browsing, you can even do a VPN using Tor. I tell you what, I've been using this app now for a week and a half. I'm never going back to Chrome. It is so much faster, so much cleaner. Anyway, and I've had a lot of clients say lately they want to kind of leave the Google sphere. They're tired of being tracked. They're tired of all of that happening. Well, this gets you out of that. It pretty much gives you completely anonymous, beautiful browsing where nothing is ever tracked.
Yeah, and one little extra interesting thing with Brave is that if you do opt in to seeing their kind of, pre-designed ads, they'll actually pay you for it. Now, obviously, you're not going to quit your job and, look at ads for a living, but they kind of have a model where by opting into ads, you get paid. So if you're watching us here, Brett, I'm going to have to get worried about you retiring early. You've made almost 50 cents here.
51 cents.
51 cents. So you're raking it in. But, basically that's kind of part of their model where, by opting in to view, one ad on your homepage here, you just don't see any other ads and they kick you, a fractional cent every time that you do see an ad.
Yeah, it's nice too. It automatically, populates your most recent sites. And then you've got this scroll for Brave where they kind of try to understand what I guess this is their way of curating some news based upon what they think you might be interested in, which is weird because they're not collecting data on you. So I guess it's just more of a top news, but they do some really interesting, it's an interesting browser. I have to say it's Chrome faster and you don't have to have an ad blocker. So I got to turn off ad block. I mean, and you know how sometimes you'll go to a site and it'll say, oh, you've got ad blocker on. Please disable ad blocker if you want to view this site. That's gone. The ads are gone and it never asks you that because as far as the site's concerned, you don't have an ad blocker on. These are actually all being blocked at the server level. So anyway, great application. I don't know if anybody has ever used it. And you can also, by the way, you don't have to see ads. You can opt out completely on ads and you'll never, ever see an ad ever. So it's a cool application. So, all right, that brings us to our tip of the week. And this is one of our beginner's guides. Again, we did this on Zoho Sign this week, and this is our 7-minute tutorial on Zoho Sign tags. If you haven't used sign tags, these are little snippets that you can put into any document that basically will automatically put signature fields, date fields, any basically field that you have inside Zoho Sign. You actually can just say, this is where the field goes. And then when you upload that document to Zoho Sign or you're automatically sending, you don't have to go through and drag those fields over. They'll automatically be in the places that they need to be. And this is how to do that.
Yeah, just kind of a quick walkthrough. And I think one that we find many clients use who are in CRM and in Sign, right? This kind of is the engine behind that integration.
That is it. So that then brings us to our Q&A. So what do we got today here? Jessica asked, are there any Microsoft Teams phone telephony connections for Zoho? None that I know of. Tyler?
Yeah, they have a Microsoft Teams integration, but it's more for like notifying certain channels, right? More than it is for leveraging the Microsoft Teams telephony. So, it's like you could integrate it and then basically view CRM inside of Teams or maybe notify certain channels in a workflow, but unfortunately it does not let you use the voice over IP.
All right, and then we got the second question here. I'm going to have to wade through this one. Gave us a paragraph here, Jessica. We have a call center and we give them a directory that tells all people in our organization and includes contact forms. So if a customer prospect needs to speak to someone, the call center can submit a note to the team. Is there a Zoho tool that could accommodate a directory for the call center? Huh.
You could do something like that with the creator application. If you build a simple kind of little database of your directory and then had an external form that referred to it. Right. So basically, if I pick up the phone, someone wants to talk to a particular person, I start searching their name, maybe it pulls down some of their info, right? And I can kind of confirm that's the right person, maybe submit a note that automates a notification to that person. But you'd probably be looking at some type of little simple creator app to kind of house your directory and then spin up a form that refers to it.
All right. Yeah, I'm trying to think here. Trying to figure out a way to do it just based in the CRM, but I don't think so. Like on a pop.
Yeah, I mean, you could also do a creator form that refers to CRM, right? If you kind of stored all of your data in CRM, you could even refer to users if they're all CRM users, right? And then basically you could have a simple little form, and you can use a CRM integration field. Yeah. And then based on that little bit of code can kind of write things back to the CRM if you submit it.
I like the idea though. I mean, I think it could be very useful. Might be something to look at. All right. Anything else? Looks like that's it. Want to thank everybody for listening to the show today. As always, if you have any questions or comments, head over to Zenatta.com or crmzen.com and click on the Contact Us button, and we'll be happy to help you.
And on the website is where you'll find complete episodes as well as show notes with links to the stories we discussed today. As always, you can follow us on your favorite social media platform and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, as well as on YouTube. We'll see you next Monday.